I want to ask, because we're talking about what we know at this point about the ethics scandal surrounding the Thomas family. Can we pull up the timeline of there are a couple years here where it seems like it's just a cash bonanza, right? Like 2001, Thomas is talking about disclosing the Bible he's been given. He's disclosing the gift tuition money from the pest control owners, Earl and Louise Dixon. And then in 2008, Harlan Crow starts dropping maybe $100,000 on tuition. Harlan Crow builds a heritage museum in Thomas's hometown. Harlan Crow contributes $500,000 to Ginny Thomas's employer, Liberty Central. Ironically, the Supreme Court, of course, strikes down campaign finance restrictions in Citizen United. And then it's like, we're off to the races. Leonard Leo is directing these payments. We're getting dark money. It's just a series of years, right? Crow's buying property from Thomas. Do you have a sense, Gabe, that there was a kind of peak and then a decline in terms of what was being done and accepted in the way of these gifts, or that there's just more that we don't know about that hasn't yet been reported?
Yeah, I think there's more that we don't know about that hasn't been reported. And it seems that the nature of the gifts, as has been reported, is this yearly luxury trip. So whether it was to the Greek Isles or Indonesia or New Zealand, Thomas goes seemingly every year to a resort in upstate New York. So I think it's maybe some of the payments that you pointed to in the full screen graphic did seem to increase, but this seems to be an ongoing relationship where Thomas is just being lavished year after year. Sometimes with Leo, they're with him. There's that famous painting with Leonard Leo and Mark Pauletta and Clarence Thomas and Harlan Crow all sitting smoking cigars. I think that is sort of like the symbol of the corruption, that you have these forces that are all joining together, and they're not even hiding it. Well, actually, that's not true. They're hiding most of it.
Yes, some of it.
We've had to have all this reporting to learn about it. But that one painting is just like...
It's the new dogs playing poker.
It is.
Emma, it feels like every day there is a new story about this. And I wonder, from a reporter's standpoint, some of this was happening all along. I mean, some of this had been reported out in years past, but it feels like there is a groundswell of people that are raising their hands and saying, oh, I have a story about Clarence Thomas. I have a story about Clarence Thomas. I'm not going to ask you to reveal your sources, but can you give us perspective on the sort of chatter that's happening in and around Clarence Thomas ethics scandals?
Well, it's interesting, back in like 2011, there was a lot of reporting also about Thomas and about ethics. And at that time, it was revealed by a couple of sort of good government groups that he had not reported Ginny Thomas's source of her income, her employment, for years after initially reporting that when he got on the court. So there was this sort of spate of reporting then, and then it kind of faded away. And now it does seem like we're back in a moment where the media is really scrutinizing Thomas and other justices. And it just feels like a moment where the court, the scrutiny is not going to go away.
Yeah, well, that then sort of goes to your ends, Gabe, in terms of what can be done aside from casting a very close eye on what's been happening at the Supreme Court. What kind of reforms are even possible? I did not realize that Sheldon Whitehouse and Hank Johnson in the House are sending letters to the Judicial Conference of the United States, which is the agency that's charged with administering the courts, to refer Thomas to the AG, Merrick Garland, for investigation. Merrick Garland has a lot on his plate.
He does.
But, I mean, what can be done to fix this?
Yeah, I mean, I've called on Garland to appoint a special counsel because he has so much on his plate. And
much like Richard Nixon did for Abe Fortas.
There you go. I think that, well, a few things. One is there needs to be a strong response now. And the reason I say that is Thomas will not be on the Supreme Court for a long time, but his acolytes will be on the Supreme Court well into the...
Why don't you think he'll be on the court for a long time? Do you think just
he's
because of age?
74 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not going to be on, he's not going to live till 150.
You don't think he's going to resign?
No, of course not. I think, and I think that calls to get him to resign and impeach are kind of a waste of time. Sorry, everyone. But I think that what we need to do is send a strong message, so that whether that be investigation by a special counsel, investigation by the Judiciary Committee in the Senate and potentially in the House, investigation by the Judicial Conference, fining Thomas. Under the law, for every omission within the statute of limitations, he could be fined $50,000. So we got to go back. I think the statute of limitations is about 4 years. Got to see how many of those were in the last 4 years. we should fine him. We should pass new laws that have a code of conduct that's enforceable and stronger gift, travel, personal hospitality rules like the House and Senate do. But I'm really worried about this next generation of judges and justices because so many of them look up to Thomas jurisprudentially. I don't want them to be looking up to Thomas ethically. A dozen of them are already in seats in lower court judges. And you know the second that there's a President Haley or President DeSantis or President Hutchinson, Thomas is going to resign, and one of those former clerks is going to replace him. And I don't want it to be, Harlan Crow's next project.
Wow.
So I think sending a strong message now will have ripple effects for generations.
President Hutchinson. I mean, that's that's a future that remains ill-defined. But do you think we're getting there?
I think we're getting close. I think there are, there was the first ever bipartisan Supreme Court ethics bill in the Senate. There'd been one in the House about 5 years ago, but the first one, Supreme Court ethics bill, was introduced in the House by Angus King and Lisa Murkowski about 10 days ago. And it's very basic. It says code of conduct for the justices, enforceable with an ethics officer. And by the way, if there's another major leak, don't do a stupid internal investigation that doesn't find anything. The third part of that bill is hire the FBI or the NSA and help you out.
There are people who know how to do these things.
Yes.
Gabe Roth, you've been on this longer than anybody else. Thank you so much for your time. And Emma Brown, thank you so much for that great reporting. Really appreciate your time tonight, guys.